Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and take a look at the two beautiful souls that I have joining me today on this interview. This is Jeffrey Stegman and Clayton Stedman of FLFE, which is Focused Life Force Energy. Now, I love these two men. They are bringing such beauty and consciousness to humanity that I am completely honored to jump on a call with them and record an interview that I can share with you. So first of all, Jeff and Clayton, thank you so much for joining me on this to share what you do with the world. And I just really appreciate you guys being here.
So great to be here with you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Jane.
Yeah, you guys too. So I think it might be a really cool place to start. If you guys would just kind of tell me just really briefly a little bio about each of you, because I think what you do is so fascinating and so unique and so pivotal for the times that we're living in, that I think a little background in what got you guys to this place where you have this beautiful company with this amazing technology that is helping to raise the consciousness of the planet. So I'd love to hear a little bit of a quick bio on both of you guys. So maybe Clayton, let's start with you.
Good. When there's two of us, if you don't cue us, we get awkward.
Okay, I just realized that. That's perfect.
That's okay. That's okay. Can I start with once upon a time in a land far, far away?
Yeah. That's perfect.
Well, I am quite a ways away from home. I'm here in Nelson, British Columbia, which is where the headquarters of FLFE is. It's a small town up in the mountains of the interior of BC, about 10,000 people. And I was born in Ontario, and born in a traditional Catholic family, went to Holy Cross School, and had an interest in philosophy. I mean, we had, obviously Bible studies in school, and didn't really resonate with the church in terms of what was happening in Catholicism, but nonetheless, I still was a, studious little clean-cut young man, like everybody else at the school. And I got into, in high school, we went to a public high school, which is a shock to go from private, or not private, but separate Catholic school to the rough and tumble public high school, and got into kind of personal development teachings besides the studies, really active in sports. And after high school, I figured that the best thing I could do is travel the world and see what the world had to offer. So I didn't feel like I had the capacity to make a good career decision. I just didn't really know what was out there in the world. So I bought a truck and camper. I worked for about a year in some local factories, and bought a truck and camper, decided to travel around. So I traveled for about a year and ended up in northern Canada, of all places. And I worked in the oil field because I was broke. So that's there's a few tall tales there. And after about a year of that, I did a study of the major religions and philosophies of the world. I really wanted to find a path and get good at it. And so I found a path, and I was active in it for 11 years. I worked for private schools for most of that time, and mostly I did everything. I did everything from answering the phone to admissions to a little bit of teaching, and career counseling was my forte. Was helping people make the transition from, what they learned to getting a job. And I was trained as a life skills coach at the end of that phase. There was a huge scandal in the philosophy I was involved in, so I ended up leaving it. And I had to make a career decision for myself, so I decided to get into this emerging field called coaching, which was, in 1995 is when I went full-time as a coach. So I was trained as a life skills coach first, and then I got trained as a business coach, and then I got trained as a personal coach. So 3 different modalities. I opened a coaching practice. Well, I had a job for years and built my coaching practice up, and I specialized in Well, I specialized in the area that I thought the world needed the most, which was more conscious business people. Because business is where the power is in today's world. It used to be in the arts and music in different times in the Renaissance period, maybe being a Renaissance person, multi-talented. But it seemed to me like business had the power. And if you want to do good, kind of, my philosophy was to ask, where can I do the most amount of good with the least amount of effort? We call that the critical factor in our work, Jeff and I. So I specialize in business as a spiritual path. And about 11 years into that, I met Jeff. And then we started FLFE in 2013. And about 2004, I got heavily into kinesiology as part of my coaching practice. I was doing a lot of personal development courses and I was coaching full time. And I think I had like 8 or 9 people tell me to read this book called Power versus Force. And I finally clued in that the universe was trying to tell me something. So I read the book and I believed it was true that you could, at least in some situations, measure truth with kinesiology. So I formed a study group with 2 friends. One was an 89-year-old chiropractor who was still practicing, and the other one was a biochemist who was just retired. They were quite a bit older than I was. And we drove each other crazy for 6 months trying to get it to work. We didn't get it to work very well in the first 6 months, but then we had some breakthroughs and we found little ways we were able to be consistent, and that consistency has grown over time. So I think I'll just, I'll leave it at that.
No, that makes
I've done 10,400,000 calibrations since. Developed, I do about 20,000 a month. I did. Okay, yeah. So my specialty, I should probably just wrap this up. So my specialty was in doing consciousness assessments. So we'd measure people in different parts of their life, created some energetic medicine tools. That was my jam for years. I did 4,600 assessments, about 4,600. Probably spent 10,000 hours sitting in process groups. Did a lot of men's work, did a lot of trainings. It was kind of my life. And then I was reborn when FLFE came along.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like you've been super busy.
It's a path, it's a path.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's really amazing. I love that your life shifted when you met Jeff. So Jeff, tell us about you, and then what happened when the universes collided when you and Clayton met each other.
They did. There was a major thunderclap happening then. I grew up in the States, and I grew up kind of in, I guess you could say, an industrial family, a business, small business. So I worked my father was running a factory along with my uncle. And so I worked there and, just learned the trades. But I was a science fiction kid. I mean, when I was really young, I really loved books and science fiction. And just, being your typical high school kid at some point, there's the 70s, there's plenty of drugs around at that time. And I had been really interested in dolphins, and I had gone to a camp in Florida and got to know dolphins and really spent time with them. And I had read a book. Dr. John Lilly had written a book about dolphins where he had done some research where he created a house that a dolphin and a female person, a woman and a male dolphin lived together. And the communication was really extraordinary. So I was very interested in that, and that Dr. Lilly had a out-of-body or near-death experience and ended up, in the tunnel and the guides at the other side. And he started recreating that with sensory deprivation tanks. And so I was all into that. I'm like, I got to get a sensory deprivation tank. And of course, the closest I got was like a shoe closet, but it was, it was just kind of early on. I was pulled by the internal and what's on the other side, and really this is 6th, 7th grade. I was really starting to get into that. There was the pull of work and career. And so I ended up running this manufacturing business. And one of the, my brother and I did it together, and it was really from the heart. I mean, it was very family oriented. We knew everybody, we knew their families. Everybody was very, I don't know if intimate's the right word, but really, there was a lot of love there. So I had, a good experience there, and I had worked with coaches my whole life pretty much. And suddenly this coach introduced me to Clayton. He said, I've taken you as far as I can, and meaning and purpose in a business. Like, Clayton is business's spiritual path. So Clayton blew me away, and he's very modest about his measuring, but the kinesiology measuring, I got to really experience it firsthand. Like in the coaching that he was doing in these different areas of my consciousness, he would find the low spot through the measuring of each area, and there'd be gold there. There'd be opportunity of something that, as a child, I did the best I could, and I protected myself. And there was, some little childish piece there, or young piece, that I could now talk to and work through and use these energetic medicine tools. So it was like magic to me and I could see over and over and over again how accurate it was, and new things would show up, and they were just what I needed at the time. So it brought this kind of extra level of personal development into the business, where the opportunity in the mix of lots of people working together and trying to get things done, there's rubs, there's things that happen, and those became just like awesome opportunities for growth. It's like, okay, this is bothering me. So what's underneath it? And then when you dig into what's underneath it, then suddenly it doesn't bother you anymore. You rise above it, or, there's a kind of a way of using the world, and particularly a business, to grow. And so that was just a wonderful, gift. And then when I was working with, I had found, meditation from my mother got me in TM way back in like 7th grade, which was awesome because, I found that when I was doing TM, if I smoked pot, it was like, this messed up my meditation for a week. I got to now clean up. So it really took me out of that path, which people can, they can fall into that. And a lot of my friends did. But Clayton, I was in one of those meditation paths. There was a group, there's an Indian male and female, Amma Bhagwan. And I was giving these oneness blessings. And there was a boy that was in college, and he had cancer, brainstem cancer. And he was kind of in and out of consciousness. Parents called me out of the blue, and I was meditating with them and kind of giving them these dikshas or blessings, hands-on kind of blessings. And then, Clayton's like, well, I had a similar health challenge. And I cleared it at this inventor's place. So he invited me, and I went up to Canada, and I walk into this house, which was, the precursor to FLFE. And it was extraordinary. I mean, it was like tingly hair standing up at the back of my neck. And just walking in, between walking in and lunchtime, I just had an enlightenment experience. Like, we went to lunch, and everybody was beautiful, and I could see their story, what was beautiful about them. So something's going on here. I mean, it's like, okay, Clayton, what can we do with this? So we started working with it. And first of all, I worked with that boy that had cancer, and that's a whole nother story. But we started raising consciousness at places on the planet on the run up to what year was that, Clayton? It was 2012.
2012, yeah.
Yeah. So that whole, 2012, people were concerned about what was going to happen at the end of that, the equinox. So we said, well, let's raise consciousness. We got on Google Earth and we looked at continents. Clayton's measuring, he's teaching me how to measure, and we're finding the low spot on each continent and saying, okay, let's put FLFE, that wasn't FLFE at that time. Let's raise the consciousness of that spot as a lever point, as Clayton said, where you can put the least amount of effort to get the biggest amount of gain, and the whole continent would go up. And then we'd find another spot and another spot. And we just did that all year long. It was so much fun.
I want to go do that with you.
Well, you can. We're going to do that together.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
And we've already done it once in Sedona. If you want to tell that story later.
Yeah.
So that's what pulled me into this, what is now FLFE, was realizing that we had this technology that was a system. I mean, it doesn't have moving parts, but you could call it a machine. But it is able to activate a consciousness field in another place on the planet. And we could see through the kinesiology testing over and over and again the result of it. And so that was the beginning. And at some point, 2013, after we did that all year and said, wow, that was cool, felt like maybe that was the end of it, or maybe we'd play with it some more. And we really got the message to make a business out of it.
Yeah.
And to put all this kind of spiritual business as spiritual path, and all the work that Clayton had done and I had then done as a student into the business, and do as much good as we could with it.
That's so perfect. In fact, that's what I was introduced to you guys by some mutual friends. And immediately when I heard about it, it immediately landed on me. Like, this is amazing. And one of the things that I love is when I first had a conversation with Clayton, he had measured the frequency of the consciousness of my business. And it rolled out, it measured at 500, which is the frequency of love, pure love. And it's interesting when you know these things and you can feel the frequency of things you create, especially, but then you have a confirmation. It was really cool. And the thing that I love about what you guys have created is it came from a place of deep experience and also excitement. The fact that you guys spent a whole year checking different locations around the planet and going, okay, let's raise the frequency of this place and raise the frequency of this place. In fact, one of the things that's been my favorite, because I've been with your service now for about 1.5 years. And what I did is I put the service on both of my grown sons' homes. So, they're both grown, they have families, and one doesn't know about it because he's like, oh, just one more thing, Mom. Don't worry about me, because I'm always bringing all the high consciousness frequency. Here's this, do this. But my other son was like, oh, thank you. There was a difference there. But I really love your mission. And it makes sense that you would have a business, because this is such an important time in human history. In fact, what I love is how long you've been going and how it's been a ramp up, because the last 5 years with the pandemic hitting, the levels of frequency of fear that hit the planet in 2020. In fact, this is one of the things that your story is similar to mine as far as reading Dr. Hawkins. I read Power versus Force probably 10 times in the last 20 years. And then so when you started talking about the level of consciousness from 0 to 1,000, I already knew that all those things made perfect sense to me. And So I'm really actually happy at this point where I've been experiencing your service for so long, because I have felt a difference in my life with my family, because I have it on my home and I have it on my business. And I think that even though we work to keep our frequency high, there are times when it's just not that easy. And not just that, I like how it mitigates EMF. That has been a really important thing for me because, I've got all this other stuff, but it's like, oh, that just puts a layer. So I have a few questions that I like to lob at you guys, and I'll say who I'll direct this to, but I think we're going to have multiple conversations, because we could do a Joe Rogan and do a 3-hour conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people will open the video and see that it's 3 hours and click on it. So, so you both kind of brought up mission and the fact that it's a business. So, so here's a really good question. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs who want to build a business that's aligned more with consciousness? Because to me, this is really where the world is going, and it's what the world needs. We need businesses that are more not about how fast can I get into business, how fast can I make a lot of money, and how fast can I sell it? Because there are businesses out there that's their whole mission. But what advice would you give to entrepreneurs? Clayton, what do you say about that?
Well, I think I'll answer this from the point of view of the assessments that I did for all those years. And Jeff didn't mention this, by the way, but when I was coaching him, he would have these consultants that would come in to his company for 3 years and work on their culture. And that business was over, I think, 160 years old or something. Jeff will correct me later, but not everybody who has a successful business has consultants come in and work on it for 3 years with them. So just to give Jeff a little more cred, he was living business as a spiritual path in his own way. So, in the assessment that I did, the first category was personal development, and the Coles Notes definition of personal development is the understanding of yourself and the ability to manage the process of change. Now, there's a lot more definitions than that, and there's 10 subcategories. But when you're looking at raising your level of consciousness in personal development, a lot of times, or just in general, but understanding yourself, it's really where you spend your time. Your time represents your values. And when I was a coach for the largest time management company in the world, that was my business coach training, we did a lot of values work. And the way that you figured out people's values was you looked at where they spend their time. If they didn't understand values, that was one of the clues you'd use. And then we had assessments after that, but we tried to look at current reality first. So the question in time management is, what's the most valuable use of my time, right? And you can calibrate the level of consciousness of questions to help you raise your consciousness. And the ultimate question, or one of the ultimate questions, there's probably multiple ways to do the same thing. The ultimate question in personal development was, what is your will for me, Lord? What would you have me do? What is your will for me, God? Because God may not always want you to look for the best use of your time. The best use of your time may be to sit and be silent and think about what you're doing and get present. There's a sort of an unconscious assumption of what's the most valuable use of my time in business, because you get paid for the value you create, right? So the more value you can create, the more you'll likely get compensated. You have to negotiate that compensation, of course, and that always doesn't work out. So you might have to go somewhere else where they recognize your value. But if an entrepreneur is asking me to start out, I would encourage them to ask a couple times a day, what would you have me do, God? What's your will for me? And then try to work on your discernment with the Creator. That's the best question I think you could ask.
Yeah, that's perfect. What I really love is that seems to be where the world is going. That those are the businesses that are going to thrive because it's so high level, and that's what we've been missing as a collective, is the consciousness businesses that are here you know, help us and bring us the things that we need to thrive as. And we all bring different gifts. Businesses are different, different things come in together. So I love that. So, you know what I would love, Jeff, is could you explain to me, we're going to kind of just swap to a different gear here. How does focused life force energy work? So I know you said that there's a machine, but there's not moving parts, but on a layman's terms, this is the question I've been getting asked as I've been sharing this with people, because since I put it into place and I've been experiencing different things that are really amazing. I share with my sisters, I share it with people I have lunch with, and it resonates with some people, but they have questions. So what would you say about how does FLFE work?
Well, when I first walked into that house, the original inventor's house, there was high-speed alternating current running through coils and plates and stacks. Basically, the whole place was full of these stacks. And the alternation with, the AC was tuned and the voltage was tuned, and it was bringing energy in. It was kind of a harvesting of energy. And originally they were trying to harvest energy to create electricity and a free energy type device. But this energy coming in is chi, prana, life force energy, maybe used to be called the ether. And there's all these different definitions could be, defined more closely, but there was energy coming in and was focusing into one place in this system. And while it's gotten much simpler now, as many things have, it's still a focusing kind of life force, chi, and high consciousness field in a space. And then that space is where a quantum association can happen. So it just so happened that because of the way this was designed, that a photograph that's put into that high energy space created wherever that image was showing, say it was a house across the planet, there is now a field around that house. So there was this quantum association, and it was, you could say, instant, and distance was no impediment at all. So, much of the experimentation of quantum mechanics and quantum science at the atomic level was, included quantum entanglement, or quantum association, as we tend to call it, where, in that case, they had paired electrons that had the same spin, and you could move one of those electrons on the other side of the planet, and if one of those changed their spin, the other one would instantly change their spin. So there was this connection between them. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, and that was part of quantum mechanics. And I think more and more science is seeing that on a larger scale as well, that there's the way chlorophyll works, there's large scale compared to an atomic level. And then we can experience it ourselves as humans, and we believe, that we can quantum connect anytime with another person. And so while we have a system, and in that system is this highly energized space, now that we are able to connect to that space, where if someone goes on a free trial and they put their home address in, it's like it's in the machine. And it creates this field instantly, which is just a wonderful thing, because now you can go on a free trial, no credit card, and you can just see if it feels different. That field that's activated, it's much as though you were thinking of someone. I mean, we experience this all the time. I'm thinking of someone, and then the phone rings as they're calling me. So what's happening is they're thinking of me. They're holding me in their mind, and that I'm uniquely identified in their mind. And as they're dialing, that field's activated around me. So I'm thinking of them because we're now connected in that quantum way. Phone rings. So that ability to activate a field instantly anywhere is a human ability. And now we're able to do this with the system, and it's a 24/7 connection now. So we're specifying in the system the level of consciousness of the field, the unique identifier, the address, coordinates, phone number, identify it, and then we're putting information in the field, and we're doing EMF mitigation and a whole host of other things to make that field, that place, the most supportive for our evolution, the most sort of sanctuary-like, quiet, feel good in the unconditional love zone.
Yeah, that's perfect. In fact, I was just sitting here thinking how amazing and perfect for you guys to meet each other when you did. And I believe that all things happen with divine purpose. And I think you guys know that as well. And I feel the same, having met you guys, what I did, just with all of the things that have unfolded in life. But what's interesting is the last year and a half that I've had this on my home. So I'm the second oldest of a really big family, and my parents have both passed away. And my mom was really, she had MS for decades and was basically not really able to have the place. Let's all go to grandma's house. We never really had that. It was always kind of fell on the laps of the older children. And I'm being one of the oldest. People always have gathered at my house. If we have a birthday, we're celebrating a big something for somebody. But what's been interesting is in the last year and a half since I've had FLFE on my home, I've had comments from people, and I have a big group of people that are my family, my immediate family. And really, I'm the only one, and my husband who is not, he's now finally realizing the power because he sleeps so well. He used to always have trouble sleeping. But what's interesting is almost every gathering that happens now, they all want to come to my house because it's like they can just feel the love and the high frequency. And I'm not I love that. My husband loves to cook, which it's all wonderful. But there is, and you can feel the energy of people they're drawn to it. And they might, I haven't told everybody, I've told some of my siblings that what I have on the house. And there was always a frequency of love there anyway. But this is different. And I think with all of the things that this service brings, you really can't explain it until you experience it. And that was, in fact, my husband even said about 6 months ago, why does everything need to be at our house? It's like, well, it's because there's so much love here, and the energy field is so high. So maybe, Clayton, why don't you explain to me all the list of things that what FLFE does besides EMF mitigation? What could people expect? And I know there's a lot of different things, but what are the top things that you would think would be important to point out?
Yeah, it would take a while to talk about all the things. We have, as Jeff said, we have these. So between the high conscious field of the machine and the high conscious field created in your home, we have these requests to divinity that go out, right? So we have requests such as, having, let's say relationships. We just talked about family. So we'll write all these, what we assume are the highest consciousness thoughts, and we measure them. What's the ultimate experience between a husband and wife? What's the optimal experience between a mother and a daughter, a mother and a son, a father and a daughter, a father and a son, between the, two male children, between the boys and girls? And we make these requests to divinity or prayers. We call them programs, and we put those in the field. So that helps bring people closer together, as well as the high consciousness field. Now, maybe when I'm finished, Jeff can share some of the research, because we've done some excellent research. We've got a gentleman named Gary Schwartz, who is perhaps the preeminent person in consciousness research, for us anyway, for our specialty. And we have a doctor on staff, Dr. Polly Bellwood, and she's her specialty was in gathering data and creating user interface for data. It was originally for medical applications, but she's applied it to consciousness research. So, yeah, I mean, improved relationships. That's a big one. Jeff will get into the data later, but one of the main benefits is that it's the ability to forgive self and others when you do the questionnaires, the ability to change a negative thought to a positive thought. It's just easier. We do have a lot of sleep, really good sleep stories, a myriad of health benefits, but we don't really make any medical claims, but we have lots of health improvements. It's just because the body has more energy, and the body's, innately intelligent. You don't have to tell it what to do. If you give it energy, it just starts to do the healing. EMF mitigation is a big one in the world today. That was an ongoing project for us. Originally, the way we came across the consciousness lowering effects of some EMFs is that we test all the properties every week to make sure they're at the level of conscious we promise. And if it's not at the level of conscious we promise, then you get it for free until we fix it. I think there's only 2 people of the tens of thousands that we've tried that we haven't got up to level. And so we were having a few properties below the level of consciousness that we promise. And if you do a free trial, once we test your property and make sure it's at level, you get access to a control panel. It has a consciousness slider, so you can slide the level of consciousness up and slide it down in your house. Some people find it's pretty intense, at the beginning, especially if there's like a geopathic stress zone in their house and they're used to like having to compensate for that almost unconsciously. When it becomes very supportive, then there's usually a bit of a period of adjustment for the person. So we were finding a few homes were lower than what the promise was, and we'd call up the person and we'd say, well, you notice the conscious of your home has dropped a little bit. Is there anything that's changed? And they'd say, well, we just had, they just put a new smart meter on last week, right? Or I just got a new router a couple of days ago or 2 weeks ago, or there's a new cell phone tower went up across the street. And that's when we discovered that there are consciousness lowering magnetic frequencies. Now, there are many consciousness rising electromagnetic frequencies, like being a positive, loving person, you're emitting EMFs. We're a liquid crystal, amazing machine, humans. Dogs wagging their tail, happy dog, happy cat. There's even plants, give off a positive EMF. It's very subtle, but it's most of us just aren't used to thinking of EMFs that way. It depends on your definition of it. Some people consider the positive magnetic force from the earth to be an EMF, right? So we just have to look at your definitions. So we eventually found a way to, well, when we discovered the EMFs there was conscious lowering EMFs, we explored blocking the EMFs, redirecting them, and then eventually we found a way to harmonize them to make them positive, and the level of consciousness of the whole property went up when we unraveled that discovery. And now our latest iteration is that we recognize that all these stimulants that happen to us can be used as a stimulant for evolution. So you want to let the optimal amount of EMFs into your environment that will help you adapt to the condition in the world. And some people, like I happen to know a person who was in Chernobyl when Chernobyl happened, and a lot of their friends got really sick and they only got mildly sick. So they had some natural resilience to to radiation other people didn't have. They were just born that way. So some people won't notice the effect of EMFs because they're naturally resilient, and other people need to find a different way to manage it. So those are some of the top things about the FLFE environment. It's improved relationships, easier to forgive yourself and others, change positive thoughts to negative thoughts. And the big discovery in EMF research for us was really shungite. And we use the energetic signature of shungite in the environment. And that's that's the key to having that right relationship with EMFs.
Very cool. Very cool. So you have some good data for that, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, I'll add some other anecdotal pieces as well. Sleep is so big.
Yeah.
And it's tied into EMFs in many cases. But one of the anecdotal things that we hear often is that teenagers start cleaning their rooms. Which, I mean, it really happens.
Miracle.
It sounds like a miracle, right? But there's something about a high, in a high consciousness zone where at unconditional love, people want to take care of the space. It just, you just want it to be nice. And that even teenagers can have that happen. So, in that high consciousness field, some people say, I can just breathe freely for the first time. I can just take a deep breath. Because there isn't the stimulation that you have in this current world to the extent. And so people feel calmer, meditations are deeper. That's a big one. And what we were getting so many of these different testimonials that with Dr. Gary Schwartz, we decided to see, can we, over a series of experiments replicate, like what are the highest ones? What are the ones that happen most often? So we, first of all, took, every testimonial that we had and we put it all together into a program. And we looked at what were the most common experiences in all of those. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. And then we did a customer experience survey that we did with a series of customers. So as Clayton said, the number one was it's much easier to turn a negative thought into a positive thought. And we hear that anecdotally where, I used to have this story about myself and I don't have it anymore. It's easier to turn it like I can't do this or I always fail at this. It's so much easier to now have a positive story, to notice the negative statements that I was making to myself and now shift them to the positive. So, and then the forgiving is a big one. Forgive yourself and others and that's maybe part connected to the stories, that you can forgive yourself for something that happened in the past and forgive others. And those are two big personal development, sort of.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting to me about the forgiveness piece is we all know that not forgiving hurts the person who won't forgive more than it hurts the person. I've had over the years doing what I do, people saying that they believe they're holding a grudge or not forgiving actually caused their cancer, things like that. Mm-hmm. Because we know how damaging it is to this physical body when we hold those low frequencies, and non-forgiveness is huge because, for that to be even brought up, really, from my perspective, should show people that the intention is so pure in this service that you're talking about forgiveness, So, so I don't know if you were all the way done there, Jeff, but
there's a few more. I mean, in that unconditional love zone, we think things in us that aren't where we don't love ourselves just seem to naturally come up, and people on average rise in consciousness quite a large amount in the first 90 days. So it's just kind of in that unconditional love zone, we tend to rise and we tend to transcend things that maybe held us back before. So easier and deeper meditations was the third one on the list. improved quality of life in general was right up there with that. More ease and flow in life. Now the EMF, we did a whole series of EMF research studies looking at symptoms, and the top symptoms that were dropped the most with the service, FLFE service, is insomnia. And these were people that were pretty sensitive to EMFs, but insomnia was the biggest one. Anxiety was the second. And I think that relates to feeling like you can take a full breath, and being more relaxed and able to meditate. They're just, the thoughts seem to quiet down. So anxiety was the next one. Brain fog improving was another one. Fatigue. We hear a lot about people, particularly people in their 70s and 80s who, like, I just thought my life was heading down, like this must be normal. You get older and you're tired and you can't do anything. And they're like, I now have a new lease on life. I have more energy, and more joy in my life. And so we hear that a lot. And then depression, that we didn't expect that one to show up on the list, but it was fairly high up. People felt like that lessened for them.
Well, and honestly, none of that surprises me, because if you raise the levels of consciousness and love in the area where you live, you're going to automatically feel that way. It's like going into a room where maybe there's an argument happening and you can literally feel the energy of that argument because it affects everybody in the room. Same with when you go into, say you're going into a wedding and there's so much love there because this is a heightened experience and there's everyone's in a place of love. In fact, that's one of the favorite things that my husband and I have always loved, is to go to a wedding, because it puts us in this high field of love because everyone is so heightened. So to me, for it to lift depression is not surprising, because it makes your home a real haven where your health can improve because your sleep's improving, your thoughts turn more positive. Low level depression or things that might have maybe depressed you, all those get to lift. And part of it, you start to realize too, well, maybe I don't need to watch the news anymore. Maybe I don't need to fill my life with the negative things. I think you lose your desire. I've never been a TV watcher. I like to watch a movie now and again, but to sit and watch the TV, I don't ever do that. But I think the most important thing, and this might be a really good place to wrap this up, is I would like to really encourage people to sign up for this free trial. It's 15 days. There's no obligation. You don't even have to put your credit card in, and there'll be a link below the video. But here's the thing. Once you experience it, and I would say pay attention. And I didn't tell my husband, and I've talked to a few people. A couple of my sisters also didn't tell their spouse because of the skepticism, but also because they wanted to see if they would notice something. And that part, that's not dishonest. That to me is just like, let's see what happens. It's like this fun game, right? So if there's anything, maybe I'll start with you, Clayton, anything you'd like to add, because I know, from my perspective and everything I know about you guys, your intention is so pure. And this resonates so closely with my intention and what I want to bring to the world while I'm alive, that I really feel like this can help humanity as a collective get to where we want to be faster. Because I think we're all done with the endless wars and the endless suffering. We're done with it. And to me, this is a really important piece of helping humanity accomplish that. So Clayton, let's start with you. And do you have anything you want to kind of wrap up? We're definitely going to get on another call with you guys.
Sure. Well, you know me, I love to measure stuff.
Yeah.
So I have secret measurements for Jane. So let's see here. I got several, Jeff. Okay. So, when you talk about FLFE being quantum association, my experience of Jane is she's been doing this for years in her business, maybe decades, probably, where they bless their products before they send them out. That's a type of, there's a lot of pure intent there. And for, your customers, they probably know this, but from what I'm able to measure, you're in the top 1% of all tinctures sold in the world and level of consciousness. That's part of your deliberate blessing as they go out the door, but the way you harvest, the way you run your business. So maybe the optimal kind of conditions. The mission of FLFE is to support the optimal conditions for the evolution of consciousness in an economized society. And I think the formula is it's the optimal human love and the optimal tech love. That's what I got when I was praying what to tell you about earlier. It's a combination of human love and tech love. Of course, technology is a part of God, but we forget that, right? We think it's separate. Some of us do, maybe some of us don't. But so that's what I think of you, Jane, and hopefully FLFE can help add the tech love to your business. And I think part of what we're trying to do with FLFE is we have this service, but we have about 50 people on the payroll now, and we have people work in the office instead of work from home for the most part, because we're trying to create a consciousness community. And the other thing that I got, Jane, when I was praying earlier, what to tell you was that health is an essential part of the foundation of a consciousness community. And I think what's happening with us is, you're sharing, your community with us, and we're sharing our community with you. I think that's what I got earlier, and I don't know what that means, but that's kind of what I got when I prayed. And of course, I couldn't resist testing the level of consciousness of your home before you went on FLFE.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, the previous year before it went on FLFE, it was 500, which is the top 1% of all homes in America. I think America, the average home's around 310 over the previous year. And now your home, like, at least over the previous week, it's at 600. Previous month, it's at 600. So we have 10% of the properties on the service that are at 600 or higher.
No wonder everyone wants to come to my house.
One of the few complaints we've got about FLFE is, I can't believe my grocery bill is so big. Everyone wants to come over to our house and eat all our groceries. That's one of the few, and they won't leave. They come over for dinner, and it's like, it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. It's like, I want to go to bed.
Well, you know what? This is the perfect time to say this. So in the past, my kids have been grown up for a long time. They're in their 40s. And in the past, when we have company, my husband is the ultimate host. He rolls out the red carpet. He loves to cook, but he kind of has this guest limit. It's like, okay, 3 days is the limit. Any guest should stay, because it, messes up our routine, and we're not a hotel. And I will tell you, this past year especially, you know what I'm going to say. Oh my goodness. We had a period of time about 2 months ago where one of my brothers came into town from Arizona, and him and his wife and his daughter stayed with us for a week. The day they left, my niece and her husband and her daughter asked if they could come and stay with us for 3 days. And then the day they left, my sister and her kids here in Salt Lake, they had their apartment painted, and they needed to stay with us for a week. And my husband was like, the more the merrier. This is so wonderful. It was like, I've never seen a human being change so much. And we've been married a long time. And I didn't even say anything. I was just like, wow, that's really cool. Actually, I love that. Okay, so thank you for that, Clayton. That's awesome. So Jeff, what do you have to say to the people to wrap up this conversation? Because this is not our last time, for sure.
And I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future. And plant life really thrives in FLFE.
Yeah.
So we really, people noticed, and we heard it anecdotally, and now we've done a lot of studies. Plants just shoot up. I mean, they love the love. So it's really great to see what happens with plants. And, doing the plant experiments has been fun. We'll get into those details, but at another time, it's just an indicator of the life force that's there and how positive it is for all life. Animals as well. We have good friends of ours whose dog was, heading downhill, and they thought it was time to put her down, and with FLFE there was a new lease on life. So we had another friends of ours I think they're in Seattle, the radio hosts.
Oh yeah.
They had this dog Cosmo, small dog, really cute little dog, and they had their router on the ground, and the dog was not around the router at all. As soon as FLFE went on, the dog laid on the router and slept on the router now. So it became a positive influence in the room. The dog wanted to sleep on it.
That's crazy. That's crazy and awesome. Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time today. I'm excited to share this interview, and I can't encourage enough for people to sign up for the free trial and just check it out for yourself. But you guys are beautiful humans, and I feel like right now at this moment, I am like, I told you guys I was a little bit nervous before we started recording, which is really abnormal for me. But right now I feel so high. I feel like I'm on some psilocybin, and I'm not. Anyway, thank you guys for taking your time. It's always beautiful to connect with you. I mean, the vibrations are so high, and I love you both. So thank you again.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay, we'll talk soon. I hope you enjoyed that video with Jeff and Clayton from Focused Life Force Energy. It's always an amazing thing to get on a call with them, feel their energy, and learn from them about the amazing technology that allows us to raise the frequency and the field of energy around our own homes. So click on the link that says awakenthefield.com and try this out for yourself. And here's the thing, I would love to hear back from you, just what you experience and what you feel from the first 2 weeks, 15 days of just trying this service out for yourself. You don't need to put in any credit card information. Just put in your name, your address, and let them do the rest. And then let me know what you think. So thanks for tuning in for today's video, guys. I hope you have a beautiful week ahead, and we'll talk to you soon.